My workbench sits immediately behind my table saw, so I decided to build a set of table saw outfeed rollers that would catch stock as it came out of the saw. My table saw sits several inches higher than my workbench top, so once I knew the distance between the two, I could cut up some scrap pieces of pine to make the rollers out of. My workbench top has 3/4 inch dog holes drilled uniformly across its length. In order for these rollers to sit nicely in the top at any position along its length, I had to get these exactly lined up with the dog holes. The holes are 3/4 of an inch wide and the stock is 3/4 of an inch thick, so aligning it across the top of the table meant exactly covering one of the holes and transferring the centering marks I made earlier to the top of the workbench. I could then draw a line between the two, which gave me the exact center of each one of the holes. Measuring across the circumference of the circle in the exact center allowed me to draw a line on the other half. I could then line up my base plate to those two marks and mark the exact position across the stock where the hole would hit. The middle of the board could then be marked and drilled. For the pins, I used short lengths of 3/4 inch dowel stock. Each pin was rounded over so that it would be easier to insert them in the dog holes. It is important when gluing in these pins that you get them in straight. If you get them in there at a slight angle, it ain't going to work right. I glued a strip of pine along the back of each of the bases, and its width, combined with the thickness of the top and bottom plates, are exactly the distance between the top of my table saw bed and the top of the workbench itself. I used regular wood glue and 1.25 inch drywall screws to hold everything together. If you choose to do like I did and use inexpensive pine, you absolutely have to pre-drill these holes before you drive screws. Pine just splits terrible. These roller bearings I sourced from a seller in China via Aliexpress, but you can purchase these locally through Harbor Freight and probably online from other sources. My workbench is 28 inches deep, and I was able to fit 10 of these across the length of the rail. The video here only shows 2, but I actually ended up making 3 to give me a little bit better support across wide pieces of stock. As you can see, these drop nicely into the dog holes on the top of the workbench, and I can position them anywhere along the workbench length. To use these, you simply drop them into place anywhere along the bench where your stock is going to be coming off the saw. This is where the measurement I did at the beginning of this video matters, the distance between the tabletop and the workbench top. You want these rollers to sit just at or maybe 1/16 of an inch below the level of your table saw top. There you go. Easy, inexpensive workbench tabletop roller outfeeds. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope this gives you some ideas for your own shop.